Hi, everybody, John Cena here, and welcome to FunkQuest Season 2, Quarter Final 2. And it gets exciting now because one of these ladies or gents is going to go through to the semi-final, the last four of Season 2. So if you are a new listener to the show or watcher to the show, what these funksters are going to get are questions which they pick themselves, but they do not know what they are. So if you're looking at my screen now, you're seeing a picture of some roller skates. Now, Kimya could pick that, but she doesn't know what the question is. And we're going to get a minute to give some answers from our life experience or our knowledge, because we think that random ideas are the key to learning new things. And that's why we just talk randomly for a minute. You need to be listening to at the end, because one of these ladies or gents is going to go through to the semi-finals and you can vote on how that is. So without further ado, Bryan, tell me who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
I'm Bryan Falchuk. I'm from the U.S., and I help people change their lives through writing and speaking and coaching work. And hopefully they take it in and move forward, because we all need a bit of that.
We certainly do. And Kimya, tell me who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
I'm Kimya Nuru from the United States of America, Richmond, Virginia, and I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I am an activist, a sociologist and criminologist specializing in changing policies, procedures, laws, dismantling all forms of white dominance, male dominance, man dominance, cisgender dominance, all those forms of power majority. I work to dismantle all of it everywhere, and it pisses people off, and that means change is happening.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, interesting stuff. And you're a doctor, aren't you?
Yes, I have a PhD, yes.
Yeah, PhD.
Not a medical doctor, but
You can't
I do specialize in health equity as well.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
So, who's going to go first? Bryan, I'll let you go first. Question one, you got some roller skates, a horn, some noodles, or a cityscape?
Let's go with the noodles.
So where does power come from?
Is this specific to the locomotive or in general?
I don't know. Do you understand that how a train works? If you know, do tell us that. If not, give us a general answer.
Well, so I've studied it through watching Thomas and Friends with my son, so I'm going to say no, I don't. Where does power come from? That is an incredibly loaded question that I think actually Kimya's work is exactly about that. Power comes from places, I think, systemically that we don't even realize. And we're either a part of it or we're on the other side of it being held back by it. There's personal power, though, and that's what my work focuses on. And I think that always comes from within us. And it may not be easy to tap into, but it is there. And so the question is, how do you find what actually matters to you so you can fight through maybe some of those systemic powers that are keeping you from being where you want to be?
Do that, or you can pick any of the other icons. It's your choice.
I will choose the cityscape.
The cityscape. I don't know where that is, actually. A cityscape. Where would you build an ark?
Where would I build an ark? Yeah. So if it's a literal ark, I would build it over the largest oceans in the world and find ways to connect everyone. That sounds like such a children's book. But if it's a figurative ark, that goes back to the whole notion of power, right? Because an ark could be used to explain how we connect different demographics and cultures of people for thousands of years. And when we're talking about individual level power, it's always important to make sure we outline exactly what we're teaching people. So words like systemic, structural, those are used so much. And as a sociologist, I always tell sociologists that we have to explain what this means. So we empower people. We tell them you can build an ark, a bridge to reach other people, a way to network with other people, while also being prepared to know that there are forms of capital, cultural capital, that keeps arks from reaching people. And we can talk about that more.
Yeah, we maybe need to get a separate show on that, but it's good that you can. Well, I'd say you're probably good. I was just going to say, actually, these ladies and gents are quite good and make it look quite easy, because whatever Kimya's going to pick in question 2, she's going to carry that answer on, right, aren't you? So you can have this fire, these kind of building blocks, this biplane or a sparkler firework thing.
Building blocks.
The building blocks. You like to waste time? Oh, there you go.
How do I like to waste time? Oh, my goodness. This weekend was so awesome because I did nothing in terms of work and everything in terms of relaxing, watching some movies, and exercising. And so for me, wasting time is very subjective because for me, procrastinating, watching TV, that's like for the mental space, right?
Yeah.
And so some people would say it's wasting time, but I think it's actually valuable time that you're using to focus on yourself. Because for me as an activist, I can't fight for inclusion and equity and then I myself am struggling. I think that's the hypocrisy of a lot of people who do this equity work. First of all, most people are not really doing the work that they're getting paid to do. But for those who are, they're so focused on health equity, for example, and then they themselves have high blood pressure, a mental health condition. So I tell people we have to be that which we're supporting for the world around us.
Yeah, you don't strike me as very much of a procrastinator, if I can respectfully say so.
My version of procrastination is probably not a lot of people's, but when I'm just laying to TV.
Yeah, I can just imagine that. Yeah, Bryan, question 2. You get the same choice.
I'd do the same because that question really, yeah.
What,
the blocks.
The blocks.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. Oh, how do you like to waste time?
Yeah. So for me, that the phrase, I mean, I think Kimya hit it spot on, is the phrase is problematic. I don't waste time. That's a choice of how you frame your actions. And that's part of why people don't take care of themselves. I hear it all the time. And someone's like, oh, I sat around and did nothing today. I was worthless today. I mean, these are terrible ways to talk about giving yourself space to recover and to just focus on your own needs, which if you don't do that ever, you'll never be there for anyone else. John, you and I both are into the fitness scene and Garmin's and whatnot. My Garmin told me yesterday I was peaking, which was like the most positive thing it said about my recovery status or my training status in a long time. It hasn't been as kind to me. And when I looked into it, it's like I'm at a low point after tougher training so that I can really perform well at a race, which I'm not going to do right now. But that's what hit me, is like, you can't peak if all you're doing is pushing yourself too hard. So I don't even, the concept of wasting time, I think, is part of our problem.
That's good answer.
I agree. That's awesome that you said that. Thank you.
We're peaking.
Yeah, we're peaking.
Right?
And that's why football, soccer teams, that's why the soccer teams rotate players.
Mm-hmm.
So because you can't be world beating every weekend, you got to have a bit of downtime. Question 3, is it Bryan to go first? I think so. Yeah. So you've got some kind of poppy field, some boots, a bobsleigh, or a kind of circuit board.
Let's do the bobsled team.
What's the best thing you got for free?
I mean, it's sort of back to the same point, but it's my self-worth, which took a really long time to find because I was one of those feeling worthless kind of people. And I didn't pay for a course for that or anything.
Somebody else tell you.
Yeah. So, but you can buy my course if you're interested. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, that comes from within all of us, and I was willing to do that work for me. And that was a decade ago, and it's completely transformed everything. So everything else I value would not be without that. So I have to be most thankful for that, even if there, like anything else in my life that I love, if I really take it back to that first domino, it's when I started to recognize that I deserve better for myself and I'm capable of it anyway.
I like the domino thing. That's a good answer. That's a good, is it euphemism? Is that right?
Sure.
Push one and all the rest.
Yeah. And it's like, what's that last domino you want to knock down? We'll line them up to today and then push. And you have all your actions clear to you. But if you don't start with that first one, which is about you, then you'll never get to the last one.
Which is a million miles away or whatever.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Good episode this. By the way, listener, if you're not subscribed, you should do so. And there's some buttons around here to do that. Kimya, question 3.
Is that, you said poppy seed? Is that what that is?
I believe it's some, you go poppies, yeah.
Yeah, it's a poppies field.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll choose that one.
What is the last dream you can remember?
That's really interesting. So I actually had a dream a couple of days ago that so this was probably a boring dream to other people's standards, but I actually had a dream that I was having a discussion with a criminology colleague about dismantling police departments, which means I believe that we dream about the things that we talk about a lot anyway. And so that's a way that our brains, shape us while we're sleeping as well. So I was dreaming that we were actually having a really heated debate, which is actually what we do at criminology and criminal justice conferences. And so I woke up and I was like, I guess this means that I think about this too much, or that there's more work to be done. But that's the last dream. And I think that was Saturday. So I woke up Sunday morning, yesterday morning.
There is a school of thought that says it's your long-term memory reorganizing itself.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard that. I don't know whether it's true or not.
And some people will say if you watch TV while you're sleeping, of course, which I don't, that's what you'll dream about. But yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Question 4. Kimya to go first. You got a radio, a little wooden house, some fruit, and a pair of binoculars.
Fruit on a waffle. Let's just fully respect the deliciousness. That's in
I'm going to do the waffle with the fruit because that looks really good. We're both just hungry. So.
Where have you been on a road trip? Tell us about your road trip.
Yeah, so I live in Baltimore, Maryland now, but I still have a house in North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina 17 years. So my last road trip before COVID was actually going back to North Carolina to check on everything. So that's a road trip because it is a 6-hour drive, and that's the most I've done. And until COVID is over, I'm not really going to do too much more, and especially if it requires going on a plane. So my last road trip, just going back, seeing a very green, grassy area, driving around, and not having a problem. Like it's healthy for us to go at least an hour or so without thinking of a problem. And I tell people the problems are waiting for you. I promise you, they're going to be there. So when I'm on that road trip, I usually don't take the highway a lot of times, and I like to just look at land. And
6 hours, do you do that in a day? Complete that, we go to north of Scotland in 6 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when you're driving there, it's, especially if you don't take like a main highway type format, you get to just look at stuff. And
a lot of life.
Yeah, there's still problems, like there's intentional city design, but we can just have fun.
Yeah. Bryan, question 4. You got a radio,
so I'm curious to speak on that, but I'm also curious what else is out there. Let's do the old binoculars.
Binoculars, they probably do. When was the last time you cheated? You don't cheat, do you?
I certainly, I will admit, I have cheated in my childhood in school.
Yeah, go on then.
Well,
so
but I had something more profound than that.
Yeah, go. Yeah,
I
do
don't
it.
even think it's a good. Well, one of the diets I did had a cheat day in it, and that was a really big part of my life, was focusing on cheat day. And as I looked back on it now, on the other side of self-worth, I look at that as the most stupid idea, because it's like, how much do you value yourself if you're just waiting to undo all of your hard work? And it's not about, taking some downtime and things like that, because it isn't a self-care act. There's a mental self-care is the freedom of it, but there's other ways to have that freedom without hurting yourself. And I would eat myself to the point of getting sick. So that was a form of cheating. It was part of a diet, but it wasn't serving me.
You're right. That is profound. I used to work with somebody who was on a diet Monday to Thursday, lettuce and all that kind of healthy stuff, and then Friday, pizza or something like that. A double burger.
It doesn't work
on Friday. I
would wake up lighter after my cheat day, despite eating like 2 cakes, and because I was so sick, and like so it just became silly. And the restrictions I made during the week, I don't think were smart. Like I couldn't eat fruit, which is like fruit.
Yeah.
What's wrong with fruit? I couldn't eat carrots because they're too sugary. So now I just eat whatever I want. I'm vegan, but anything, as long as it's not animal product, and I'm fine.
Excellent. You were right. That's a much better answer. So question 5, and it is you to go first. You've got the pyramids, a sports car, cards, or
all right, I'll take the. Is it that's a Gallardo Huracan?
It's a sports.
It's a Lamborghini.
It's a sports car.
I feel like a failure for not knowing precisely which Lamborghini.
I don't know. Who's the oldest person you know?
It was my dad's 75th yesterday, but that doesn't qualify. My wife's grandmother is about to be 92. She's the oldest living person in my life currently, but I've known older people before, but she would qualify.
92 is a good age.
I don't know if she would agree with that.
Well, I don't know. I suppose when you get to that view, when you get to that age, you're entitled to your own view of the world, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, and she lives alone, and I mean, it's amazing. When I was growing up, what like my dad's age would have been incredibly old in my view because I was little, but even still 75 was, I mean, he still works, and he's like what 60 something would have been back then. So it is pretty amazing to see that.
Advances in healthcare and stuff like that, aging population and all that, we can carry on doing stuff that would have better diet, better access to healthcare, dentistry, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kimya, question.
It's like Kimya's work, right, though? That healthcare access is a big piece of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's slightly different over here because we've got the NHS, but, I mean, medical knowledge generally, whether you have to pay for it or whether whatever. I'm looking like 1,000, feet up or whatever.
Yeah.
Access to, if you rewound 50 years, dentistry would have been much more primitive, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Kimya, question 5.
Yeah, so since you used the word primitive, I'm going to choose the pyramid.
Yeah, which mythical creature would you like to keep? Assuming you want to keep any.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't follow mythical creatures. I'm more so focused on thousands of years of knowledge as an aggregate. So it's not like a mythical creature. It's more so saying humans have existed for thousands of years, and a lot of things that we have done for thousands of years, like medicine, health, universities, all those things that have existed forever have been marginalized and minimized to be uncivilized. And that's something that we can look at when we talk about the creation of racial categories by whites for centuries. The idea was that despite thousands of years of knowledge, that's uncivilized. Therefore, we're going to perpetuate this falsehood that white men created everything. So for me, it's not mythical creature. It's more so understanding the history of many stories, religious stories as well, and how that's used to oftentimes label and harm people.
Good answer. Yeah, good answer. These are stinking questions. I'm glad I don't get answers.
They're not stinky questions. They actually just challenge you to think beyond.
Yeah. I would say this is harder than it looks, ladies and gents. If you're listening, this is harder than it looks. These ladies and gents have made it look quite easy, but it's difficult. And I wouldn't have answered that question. I'd have just grinning idiot type of face. Anyway, who's won? Well, I don't know. And you have the power, listener, to work out who's going to go through to the semi-final, and it's very easy to do. If you go find this episode, go find the blog post where it is situated and leave a comment as to who you think has won. Very simple. The one that gets the most votes goes through to the semi-final. That's it. Bryan, tell us how we can find out more about you and buy all your books, etc.
Yeah, so you can learn more at bryanfalchuk.com. It's BryanFalchuk.com. And everything else is linked up from there.
Excellent. And Kimya, tell us how we can find out more about you.
Yes, so I am website www.365diversity.com, diversity.com. Also, I'm back on Twitter, been there for a couple of weeks now. So that is 365 LLC, or my full name, Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. And on Twitter, I talk about a lot of stuff. I challenge a lot of things that are considered normal. So you might find something that offends you, and that's okay. That's what it means when you're challenging falsehoods that are perpetuated as being truth and normality.
Excellent. Good episode, that. And we'll see one of you in the semi-final. Kimya and Bryan, thank you so much, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much for making it to the end of this episode. Did you know that you can play FunkQuest yourself? We call it FQY. You can get going now with a 10% discount coupon that's displayed above my shoulder. Thanks so much, and take care.